What's going on, everybody? You're listening to the Hill Shadows podcast. My name is Jeremiah. I'm with Ashley, as always. If you're into the supernatural, unexplainable, the paranormal, and the mysterious, hit the subscribe button. That's the kind of content we cover on this channel. And we do this podcast every Friday. So if you want to check out our old episodes, I have all those in a playlist here on the channel, so make sure you guys are subscribed so you don't miss anything. Been a pretty busy week, and finally we actually had a night where we don't have some rain for once, so that's been a little bit overwhelming lately in our area. It's been a substantial amount of flooding going on, and when it doesn't rain, it hasn't been too much of a time period between the rain, so it's nice to be able to at least try to have a fire going tonight. I couldn't really get one going, but I attempted it. And I also got to meet a NASCAR driver this week. Did you meet that guy?
I didn't actually get to meet him. I saw him.
Jimmy Johnson, right? Was that his name? I met Jimmy Johnson. I don't know if you guys are into NASCAR. I personally had never heard of this guy, but I think he's kind of a big deal. I don't know. Anyway, I have a story I want to share tonight, and we're going to talk about wild men is what we're going to talk about tonight for one of our topics, and feral humans being specifically what I'm speaking of when I'm talking about wild men. Actually, people who have either lived their entire lives out in the wild and been feral from birth, or people who maybe ended up out there for a long period of time and maybe stayed and became feral. Either way, it's some pretty scary, horrifying encounters when it comes to feral humans out in nature. But the first story I want to share tonight is actually an encounter from somebody we know, and I'm not going to go over any names or anything, but it's a person that we've known for a while, and it's somebody that I would never have thought to even ask about this particular subject.
Nor would you ever question.
And this person, would definitely never lie. And I'll get right into this. This happened in Greens Fork, Indiana, and it was in the early 1950s. And I actually contacted him to inquire about this encounter, because somebody close to me had told me that they thought maybe I could speak to him about it. And upon contacting him, he was very quick to share his story with me. And I'll just read what he messaged me. I estimate I was about a first or a second grader, because I could climb a wooden gate like a ladder. We were visiting my uncle's place north of Greens Fork, Indiana, in the early 1950s. Imagine a large open gravel area with fenced yard and a house to the east, a large barn opposite on the west side, and a couple of smaller buildings on the south side, boxing in three sides, and the open north and connecting to a long, tree-lined driveway. The end of one building on the south side was a straight line with the front of the barn, with a gate between them which allowed across to the fields. A group of us kids decided to go to the woods to play, which was where we spent a good portion of summer days. I lost my spot, hold on. A group of us kids decided to go to the woods to play, which is where we spent a good portion of summer days back then. I realized I needed to pee, so I asked them to wait on me as I ran around behind the house to do my business in the outhouse. Upon completion, I ran back around the house as fast as I could to where we'd all been standing. They'd gone on without me. I pouted for a couple minutes, and then I decided I'd go to the woods to look for them. I ran out to the gate, climbed up, and swung my right leg across so it was like I was sitting on a horse, looking right down the end of that building. At that instant, a figure appeared walking west along the fence on the other side of whatever that field was. For a flash, I thought it would be the kids, and I felt joy. Then I realized it was alone, an adult, and I felt a flash of disappointment. Then I saw that it was the same color and had hair from head to toe, and I felt stark terror. I could see it wasn't a man, and it wasn't a gorilla. All this probably took a second. I froze like a little rabbit, my hands locked in place, gripping the top of the gate. Whatever it was, it could have walked over, picked me up, and bitten my head off. I couldn't move a muscle. My eyes watched it walk forward, perpendicular to my vision, almost casually. It never looked anywhere but straight ahead. I remember saying in my head, "Don't look," over and over until it was way down the field where it couldn't see me. I climbed down and went in the house. Never told a soul because I didn't know what to say. In 1972, I was watching TV and saw a show about Sasquatch. The first time I ever heard anything about it. I jumped out of my chair and shouted, "That's it, that's what I saw." I don't really care whether anyone believes me, but I know what I saw on that farm in eastern Indiana all those years ago. And that's it. That's the story I got. It's not a lot to the encounter.
But he knows what he saw.
But he knows what he saw, and I would never doubt this person in a million years.
No. Mm-mm.
And it's interesting. It's interesting that it happened in Indiana because I don't really hear of a lot of accounts from Indiana, right?
No, but for me, it makes Bigfoot real. You know what I mean? Like, I fully trust what him or his wife would say.
Absolutely.
They would never. They'd not make anything up.
Yeah, I would believe whatever he had to say too. I'm actually a bit surprised at who the encounter came from.
Yeah, that's what makes it.
I
so
almost
for me.
thought that I was gonna get a reply back like, "I don't know what you're talking about," but instead I got this encounter. And it happened in the 1950s, so it's not anything real recent, but it does add credibility to a lot of other accounts, right?
Yeah. So there's so many other people that I know that their stories are real.
And if you guys have anything you would like to share, we want to hear about your encounters too, whether it's been, whether you've seen a cryptid or you've had an encounter with something paranormal, maybe you've seen a UFO or been abducted. I don't know. Anything that's out of the realm of the natural and ordinary, we want to hear about it. And you can send those to us at hillshadowsky@yahoo.com. That's hillshadowsky@yahoo.com. And the second thing we wanted to talk about tonight was actual feral people who could be living out in nature in North America and other places as well.
So what's your definition of a feral person? Like,
I would say any person that lives off the grid, right, and doesn't interact in normal societal constructs.
Yeah.
Like would have
or people that have
poor communication
truly
skills.
Went out with nothing and completely reverted back to animalistic.
Right. Yeah. All nature. Right. No.
Yeah. Sometimes maybe even like Bigfoot, because
I think that's part of the
Yeah.
I mean, who's to say if we didn't throw a baby out in the woods, maybe
right, that was the other thing
maybe it would grow hair from head to toe. I don't know. We are pretty hairy creatures.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, it seems like
if you know what I'm saying, if my leg hair was a little thicker.
Oh yeah, I heard a story on YouTube somewhere this past week about something about a man or a woman that had her baby outside or something, or a little boy, and he disappeared, and she looked for him for years, never found him, and it's sometime years later saw the boy out in the wild or something, and he had grown like all this hair and was covered completely in hair.
See, I wouldn't be surprised if that.
It's actually an old Indian
What if
story.
What if we do grow a couple feet taller and grow hair over most of our bodies? Maybe.
I mean, why not?
Anyway, I've looked up the definition of a feral person, and it's wild, untamed, especially of domesticated animals having returned to the wild. So it's like something going back to the
reverting.
Yeah. Or when used as an adjective to describe a person, contemptible, unruly, misbehaved.
Mm-hmm.
What most people are picturing is mentally insane, wild people living in the woods barefoot. I mean, honestly, if you're mentally insane, wild, and living in the woods, I don't care whether you have shoes on or not. It's probably the least of my concerns. But you have a couple stories you want to share with us about feral people, and where are these people located, if so?
Well, there's a few stories in the same book that I'd read that from last week about weird Kentucky.
Okay, so it's from our region here.
Okay, yeah. So there's actually one from the county over from us in Estill County. This was in summer of 1985. After local residents began reporting a man-like figure prowling in the woods near their houses, Bigfoot rumors began circulating like wildfire in the area. Police combed the wilderness and apprehended a man, a native of Irvine, who had been on the missing persons list for quite some time. According to reports, he was naked, but covered with mud and foliage, to the extent that vines and moss were actually growing in his hair and on his body. He was in a completely animal-like state of mind, could not or would not speak English, and had to be forcibly subdued. He was taken to Patty A. Clay Hospital in Richmond, and there were no further reports on his recovery in any local media. Okay, that's that one.
Okay. So it's just like somebody went missing then.
I guess.
Now, I've noticed there's a lot of, when you research feral humans, one of the most common places I see that comes up is, two specifically. One would be the Smoky Mountains, which, yes, would be Appalachia. And then also national parks. There's theories that there could be feral people living in national parks that could be cannibals, perhaps.
Yeah.
Now, let's hear the next story. What's the next story about?
Okay.
And just so, we're in the clear, you want to let everybody know where you're getting these stories from?
Yeah, I already did.
Oh, you did?
I did.
Okay.
A book about Weird Kentucky.
Right,
It is Weird Kentucky, the title. All right, so there's another one near the Red River Gorge, near Slade in Powell County.
Okay.
So the author encountered face-to-face in the wilderness near Cloud Spitter Rock an adult in his 30s, Caucasian male, walking in the woods, naked but covered with mud, leaves, and vines, which were matted into his hair and beard as well, giving him an almost absurd ZZ Top turned Swamp Thing appearance. He walked with a hunched ape-like gait. He spotted me moments after I spotted him, and we stared at each other for what, at the time, felt like an eternity. Finally, he turned and fled. His eyes seemed to show some intelligence, but he was still extremely animal-like and seemingly unable to speak. I made no effort to follow him. I've heard similar stories over the years from locals in Slade about old mountain men who have lost their minds and are now living deep in the wilderness, reverted to an animal-like state. That's it.
Interesting. So, I've gotten from a place called WPKR.com. They've got a thing about the Smokies and feral people. And there's a lot of information on here. But it says, what is the basis for the wild and crazy tale of feral humans, and it might trace back to the story of a 6-year-old boy who went missing in 1969 and whose disappearance came to be attributed to a group called the Wild Men, feral humans living deep in the woods of the Smoky Mountains. But attribution and proof aren't the same things, and there are those who even say that the wild men aren't even that feral. The Smokies.com also wonders about the possibility of people being able to live undetected and off the grid for an unusually long period of time before suggesting that maybe a bear had something to do with the boy's disappearance. But it isn't just the Smoky Mountains. Stories about feral humans living deep within our national parks have been shared for years. I can't remember where I saw this, but there's been the suggestion that sightings of Bigfoot might actually be sightings of human beings that, I guess, could be described as feral. So yeah, I was saying earlier that maybe there's not such a long stretch between feral people and what one might call a Sasquatch.
Right.
Maybe they are, in fact, one and the same.
Yeah, so there's another story that's, to me, sounds like a Bigfoot.
Okay.
It's not, I mean, like, it's not much of a story. It's just a little information, really. Jan Thompson reported seeing a very tall, over 6 foot, naked man with unhealthy looking pale skin and a head of long flowing hair walking at night on Christmas Eve. Hold on, maybe this is the wrong one. I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, let me just keep going. I'll start over, sorry. Jan Thompson reported seeing a very tall, over 6 foot, naked man with unhealthy looking pale skin and a head of long flowing hair walking at night on Christmas Eve. The person seemed to be in a completely feral state and had blood in its hair and on its hands and face. Because of its animalistic facial features and behavior, not to mention solid red glowing eyes, Thompson was inclined to think of it more of as a Bigfoot type creature than a human being, especially since Bigfoot reports are common in Union County. Yeah, it was in Union County, December 24th, 1983.
Okay. So yeah, I've got a few little numbers on national parks and stuff like that, like the disappearances. Because some people say that the missing 411 like could be caused by feral people, right?
Yeah.
So at least 1,600 people, and perhaps many times that number, remain missing on public lands under circumstances that defy easy explanation, said John Billman, a journalist who investigates disappearances. And it's estimated that there are 640 million acres of federal land, and this would include national parks, national forests, and the Bureau of Land Management property. Each type of land is monitored and maintained in very different ways. Some, not at all. For those who go in and don't come out, it's a very concerning issue, particularly as there is no way of knowing exactly how many people go missing. Reporting a missing person is voluntary in 40 of the 50 states, and law enforcement participation is also voluntary. The resources of law enforcement in each area also greatly varies. If you disappear in a national park, there are way more resources in terms of people, horses, and helicopters versus a bureau property, which would have the local county sheriff to head up the search. The State Bureau of Investigation, or the FBI, don't get involved unless foul play is suspected, and the case is likely to be a criminal one. There was an attempt in the early 2000s to create a database to track law enforcement cases in the lands ran by the National Park Service, Bureau of Land Management, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and Bureau of Indian Affairs, but the incident management analysis and reporting system is not utilized and so flawed many branches won't use it. According to Outside Magazine, only 14% of the several hundred reportable incidents were entered into it. So what happened to the majority of the missing people? Accidents. The majority of missing persons who are found are ruled accidents, and have nothing to do with feral humans in national parks. Many die of exposure, falling, or in rare cases, animal attacks. One of the final stages of hypothermia is feeling hot, so bodies are often found in the cold with less clothing than they had on. Lost people try to climb to a high point to get their bearings and results in fatal falls. But many people are found in previously searched areas. Kids are found extremely long distances from where they were last seen. A popular story that is told in whispers around the campfire is that of Dennis Martin. Many years ago, on June 14, 1969, 6-year-old Dennis disappeared in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park in Tennessee. He went into a bush to playfully scare his family but didn't return. They had 1,400 people, including the National Guard and Special Forces, searching for Dennis. Sadly, they never found him. What they did find was 2 sets of footprints, one matching Martin's shoes and the other barefoot. This footprint helped spark rumors that Martin didn't die from exposure or animal attack, but was kidnapped by a feral person. When murders are committed, the news spreads far and wide, like the fatal stabbing of Ronald Sanchez Jr. in 2019 while hiking the Appalachian Trail. I don't think there was a single American who wasn't invested in the hunt for Gabby Petito's killer or boyfriend who left her body in Grand Teton National Park. Sadly, it's easy to Google and begin reading articles of murdered people in parks and federal lands, but one must look at this on a broader scale. Roughly 3 million people hike the Appalachian Trail each year, and in 2019, the national census counted 140,000 people living out of vans or RVs. That number has likely doubled since the pandemic. And, which national park has the most disappearances? And according to Strange Outdoors, statistics show that the Grand Canyon, Lake Mead, Rocky Mountain, and Yosemite National Parks have the highest rates of search and rescue. These parks are the perfect storm of having the greatest number of visitors and or having more dangerous terrain and water. So there's a lot of different places that have a ton of missing people. And as far as different documentaries and stuff, obviously we've already talked about the missing 411. And this obviously goes over a lot of possibilities when it comes to people who go missing under mysterious circumstances. And that is by David Paulides. He's got a series of books on that. He's also got Missing 411, The Hunted, and
plus a channel on YouTube.
He's also got a YouTube channel, and it gets a little bit political on there, but you can fast forward or whatever, Wild Child is a 60 Minutes Australia exclusive looking into a feral toddler raised by dogs. Now, this little girl was abandoned and made her home with the dogs in the farmyard kennels for 6 years. The dogs protected her, fed her, and likely loved her. She began acting like her canine family. Eventually, doctors tried to teach her to be a normal child. This special digs into the story and talks about the nature versus nurture debate. So that's pretty interesting. I believe I might have seen that one. And starting last year, there were some viral TikToks that were spreading the feral people thing around. In 2021, there are feral people that are cannibals living in our national parks, said JBay96. Okay. Social media has a lot of great attributes, but all it takes is one post for rumors to spread like wildfire. And in the case of feral humans in national parks, that viral post was made by JBay96. Okay. That was in 2021. Since I learned this, I have not stopped thinking about it. I will probably never go to a national park for the rest of my life because I am absolutely terrified of being eaten by a feral person, said JBay96. Evidently, that TikTok went viral somehow. There must be more to it than just a post. But with that post, videos are being shared all over the platform, and people share their own experiences. So somebody by the moniker of Chronicles of Olivia shared her experience at Lena Lake in Washington State, claiming she found hundreds of what she described as humanoid footsteps at the top of a mountain. She did file an official report, but no conclusive evidence was found. Her videos describing this experience were deleted from TikTok, but you can see them on her YouTube channel. Another person, who calls themselves the Present Believer, claimed to hear blood-curdling screams in Big Bend National Park in Brewster County, Texas. While camping with family, Ariel heard multiple people screaming in the woods, yelling things like, "We're gonna die, call a ranger, and I love you, just know that." I heard about this story. Ariel and her family reported it to park rangers and police, but nothing further was found. That sounds kind of creepy, to be hearing people screaming in the woods,
Yeah,
like, you know.
absolutely.
Yeah, it's, so a lot of people go missing. So if you guys are going on any trips to national parks, you know, I know one of the things they say to do is get a personal locator beacon, but personally, I can't afford those. Those are very expensive, and I think it's probably only going to work if something natural happens to you, or one of the explainable types of things. Seems to me if you go off the grid altogether, I don't think it's gonna help you, right?
Right.
I feel like if you hit, dive through a portal or something, it's probably gonna take your locator beacon in there too.
So I can think of a pretty interesting story that kind of goes together with missing people and also feral. Maybe feral, could be. It's a theory, anyways.
So, go ahead.
In 1962,
Okay.
every man, woman, and child disappeared from the town of Edmonton, Kentucky. And you know what I'm talking about, right?
I believe so. Is that the place where they had like the guy was bringing the mail or something from a town over? Like he was
Oh
left
yeah, I
one
realized
day
there was absolutely nobody there. The
right.
sheriff was gone.
Like the pets were gone too. Right?
There was one living thing found, and it was
right.
a dog that was in the process of dying.
Yeah, and there was like a certain scripture marked.
There was scripture wrote on like bathroom mirrors. I can't remember what it was. I can't remember the scripture, but there's a theory that those people went underground into caves and have, become
like
feral.
they survived to this day.
Yeah, like maybe they've survived. Something about maybe there was like a couple or something that had went to this town and were camping in a church, and while they were sleeping, they fell through the floor and into a cave. And there was like watches and maybe like shoes or clothing, things found down in the cave. So I guess a theory emerged that maybe
that's where they went.
All the people went underground.
I mean, I believe that at some point somebody had said they were afraid of some type of nuclear strike or something. Did I hear that?
Maybe. I remember there being something about maybe one of the scriptures that were wrote were like something to do with like UFO of some sort, maybe, or like something with like something with the stars, and it kind of gave that feel of like maybe something, not of this world happened there. I'm not sure.
I mean, the amount of space out there is just too vast for there to not be some sort of population of feral people, I feel like.
Yeah, I think I'm sure there's many feral.
I mean, if you think about it, the only thing that separates us from feral people is that we were born in a hospital. We've seen doctors on a regular basis, had dentist visits, been put through school, had,
We've been indoctrinated.
forced to make money so we can survive. Like, our means of survival is completely different than being out in nature. But it's the same thing. It's still survival.
Yep.
But we've just gotten so used to the way things are with the society we're in.
Our concrete jungle.
The concrete jungle, that's right. But it's something I enjoy talking about. It's definitely something that it's a possibility, right? It could be one thing that's happening to some of the people that go missing.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it goes back to the old thing about if a tree falls in the woods and nobody's around, does it make a sound?
All right.
Or it does if it's being eaten by feral people. I wouldn't want to encounter any feral people. I feel like they'd be hard to reason with, right?
It seems like it.
I use the English language very much to my advantage, and it wouldn't do me any good out there. However, Sasquatch are known to communicate, so maybe they're one and the same. Maybe feral people and Sasquatch are the exact same thing. The only way we can know is to take a baby, leave him out in the woods, and check on him.
Check on them.
I'm not telling anybody to do that, and I'm not going to do that, but science. Do what you got to do.
That's terrible.
Do what you got to do, man. Test the babies and see if they become Sasquatch. That's all I'm saying. I don't know. I mean,
terrible idea.
It is a bad idea. I feel like science could do it in a safe way, though, right?
I don't know.
Maybe not.
I don't think so.
Anyway, what do you guys think? How do you feel about feral people? Have you ever encountered any feral people? Or perhaps some of your relatives might have been somewhat feral like mine were. I want to hear about it. We would like to hear about it. If you've encountered feral people, or if you know some people that might have been mistaken for feral people, write in and tell us about it. That's at hillshadowsky@yahoo.com. We want to hear about any kind of stories you have about the paranormal, the strange and unexplainable. Or if you just want to say hi to us, just write and say what's up. We'd love to hear from you guys. And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the show next weekend. We upload every weekend, and sometimes a little more than that. Probably here soon we'll be doing a lot more uploads. Our kids will be back in school, so we'll be able to do some traveling again. And
not really traveling, but
well, we can go out and explore. You know, our kids are not big outdoor people, and I don't like complaining, so we just compromise. They don't like hiking and stuff. I wish they would. Maybe they will when it cools down some. It has been a pretty hot summer.
Yep.
But anyway, when they're back in school, it's easier for Ashley and I to get out and do stuff, and I certainly miss hiking around and exploring places. Even though they're close to where we're at anyway, it's still places I've never been, so it's new to me, and hopefully it's new to you guys too. I know a lot of you it will be. But yeah, it's something we'll start doing. I believe the kids start school next week, right?
Yep.
So yeah, starting next week, I'll definitely be back to filming a lot more and getting more uploads in. So make sure you guys are subscribed and join us and tune into our podcast every week and check out our uploads. We appreciate any support you guys give us, and we appreciate you guys taking the time to hang out with us and talk about the mysterious.
Yeah.
Anyway, you guys have a wonderful weekend. It's been fun, and we'll talk to you guys next week.